with Sojin Lim. She's a professor of Asia Pacific Studies at the University of Central Lancashire and joins us from Lancashire in the UK. Professor, thank you so much for your time. Firstly, what do you think led to the president's decision to declare martial law in the first place? It was a decision that surprised many, including those in his own party.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. First of all, the decision looks like it was really radical measurement for Yoon Suk-yeol to see. For me, it's very radical and unreasonable. And behind of this decision, looks like that he was really frustrated, not because of the reason he provided from the budget cut and the difficulties with the opposition party, but it's more about he's having the recent scandal with his the wife, the first lady of the South Korea, with the corrupt and the scandal with the high-level politicians in South Korea around the presidential election and before and after. And that has made Yoon Suk-yeol feel really frustrated and try to find the way to exit. But it was quite miscalculated, and it turned out to be, it was actually.
Do you think this miscalculation of his could result in him having to resign, considering what we're seeing, these live pictures now on our screens of the many people who've come out very much against his decision to declare martial law in the first place?
Yes, I think now it's inevitable for us to see the impeachment. Not only those who have involved in the recent protest in Seoul, there have been very many big gatherings and protests already demanding Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment around the scandal. But now, those who used to support Yoon Suk-yeol been very disappointed, especially those in the very old generation, like my parents and the grandparents' generation, who actually went through the authoritarian government. They tended to support the conservative parties. And now by having this martial law, it triggered their trauma, and they now began to turn their back against the Yoon Suk-yeol as well. So I think it's really inevitable to see the impeachment of this government.
Do you think these events that we've seen play out over the last few hours also now strengthen the opposition in South Korea?
I'm not so sure about the strengthening of the opposition party in South Korea, because the opposition party itself also deals with lots of issues at the moment. But for the South Koreans, they don't have any other choice but go for the opposition party at the moment, because we don't have any hope with the current government and also the party supporting the president. So it's not about like whether the opposition party has a more power and strength, but it's more about the people those that don't have any other choice but need to go for the opposition party now.
And Professor, how do you think South Korea's allies internationally and also regionally will be viewing these events, especially the United States? They've got about 30,000 of their own soldiers in South Korea.
Yes, that has been also another issue for South Korean government recently, especially between Trump and Biden administrations. And now, because we are having the Trump administration again in the United States, there will be more demand either to cut this military power in presence in South Korea or paying more to support these military camps. And because of that reason, the population in South Korea would raise this issue if the U.S. military involves in this process harder, and that would be a domestic issue. So that will be really tricky for U.S. how much they can engage in this process. That will be very critical.
That certainly will be critical, because the part of the reason the U.S., I would imagine, has so many soldiers in South Korea are because of threats coming from North Korea and Pyongyang. How do you think, even though I know it's difficult to gauge the political perspective of North Korea, but how could they be viewing what's been happening in South Korea in terms of the relations?
From my understanding, it's not like a direct threat from North Korea. North Korea would not invade South Korea unreasonably, but it's more like the reason why we have so many U.S. Military personnel in South Korea is the Korean Peninsula itself is actually the buffer zone between China and the US. So beyond North Korean border, we have China and also Russia. So that is why the US can't remove its soldiers from the South Korea. So it's not only about the North Korea as a direct threat, but it's more about like in the region, in a wider scope with China and Russia as well.
Professor Sojin Lim, thank you so much for putting that all into perspective and context for us live there from Lancashire. Thank you very much.